Hey folks, welcome back to the Portable Gamer, welcome back to Train Sim World 2020, and welcome back to the M3 EMU DLC add-on. We got quite a bit to do here before we get to close the doors, but I think we get a little grace period here. All right, brake pressure comes up between when the passengers are loaded and when we have to close doors, because we're starting from a cold stop here. So that is on. We want headlights to dim. Let's crack a window here. We also want to turn on our automatic train control and our signaling system. So that is on. Everything up here. Lights on, lights on, lights on. Marker lights off. Door control. All right, we need this. And then we want that. All right. And we do have this part of the HUD turned off. And I'm going to leave that off for now, but we do have up in the corner, we do have the signals turned on, we do have the speed limit changes turned on, and then in the top left side, we have the stops turned on. I can't see a way to ever run without the stops turned on. We can turn all this other stuff off if we want to, but I feel like we have to leave the stops on, because there's no other way to know where the stops are. And even if you do write down the route, good. There we go. Even if you do write down the route, well, I mean, I guess you could write down the individual stops on your route that you're running that day and just memorize the various stations and where they are. But for me, coming into it, spending a lot of time on a lot of different routes, I guess. It's just more than I can learn right now. I started learning the Long Island Railroad signal system. I found a great PDF that somebody created that is on the Dovetail forum. All right, so this is, yeah, we're green there. It's on the Dovetail forum. It's a PDF. I want to say it's like 1.8 meg, and it breaks down the way signaling is set up on the LIRR. It is, the trickiest part for me is that every signal seems to have about a dozen different ways that it can be expressed. So the actual physical signals themselves that are trackside come in a lot of different formats, and then each one of them can mean the same thing, if that makes sense. It's like a lot of signs saying the same thing, but they all look different. And then there's a lot of different things for them to say as well. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense at all, what I just said? I think it did. All right, so we can go up to 60 now. Is that right? Yeah, that is right. So we do... All right, we do get the changes. I think that bell that we got there, was that our alerter? Or was that telling us that the tail of the train had passed into the 60 zone? I don't know. This is the stuff that I'm trying to learn from that PDF. And it's going to be a process. But I'm definitely wanting to get away from the HUD as much as possible. On freight, you can get away from the HUD completely, because you will come to a red signal at the end of the service. But on the passenger routes, I feel like I do need at least that top left, and we're going with top left and top right for the moment. What else is going on? I've been seeing a lot of freezes on the LIRR, and I don't know what that's about. We're still loading from SSD. We've still got plenty of RAM. I think it may just be one of the earlier DLC, and it's not quite optimized as well as some of the more recent DLC. But I'm liking it either way. I really do like this sim. Dovetail, not my favorite company. Train Sim World, one of my favorite sims. So what I can tell you about the system that they use, yeah, there's a little frame drop. What I can tell you about the system that they use on the LIRR is it is apparently, some parts of it are static, some parts of it are dynamic. The dynamic parts, there's a maximum speed limit, obviously, but the speed limit in that block is realistically going to be whatever traffic dictates it needs to be at that time of day. So there's really no set speed limit. It's going to be different every time you come through there. And that is reflected on this panel right here. So right now we're on a 60. I believe this is always going to be a 60 unless it's less, but I may not be explaining that right. I guess what I'm getting at is the reason there aren't always speed signals trackside and speed signs trackside is that there are areas where the speed limit can vary so much. There we go. it can vary so much depending on traffic that this is going to be the best place to deliver that speed limit rather than via those signs. That may not have made any sense. I know what I meant. I know what I meant. So yeah, it's fun, and I really am enjoying it without the HUD. I wish I would have done this a long time ago. And I'm liking this new loco too. Man, the rail fans. Ain't no fan like a rail fan. And seeing the way these people are fired up on the Dovetail forum about this M3 EMU. I'm not enough of a rail fan to notice, but they're talking about things like they reused the sound. Get a wiper turned on here. There we go. They reused the door sound from the M7 for the M3. And apparently that is not okay. People are really not happy about that. I didn't even notice. I really didn't even notice, but people noticed. And there's some other sounds. And so yeah, and stuff like that. Maybe they'll fix it in a patch. Maybe they'll fix it in an update. Maybe they won't. Typically, before a new DLC comes out, there is a big, I wouldn't say unannounced, but you don't need to really ask for it. Okay, so hang on now. All right, so we need to get down to 40, but you get a window. As long as you're braking in a way that is not appropriate, that's not the right word. As long as you're braking adequately to get to that new speed limit, your overspeed sign right here will turn off. So you don't just need to be braking, you need to be braking enough. And if you do that, you'll stay out of a penalty stop. All right, so now we're going back over here. Oh, it's a 45. Oh, frame drop. It's a 45. It's a 30. All right, so we're going back up to 60. Oh, this is crazy. And then up here we've got a signal. Okay, that corresponds to. I just tried to look. I just tried to pivot the camera up to the top right. I don't know if you saw that. Oh, I'm an idiot. So yeah, that signal we just passed under corresponds to all green in this block, unrestricted, so we're good. And we do have a 45 coming up, but we'll go through that same process. And when we pass into that 45, we should get a tone, a bell, and that'll tell us we need to begin slowing down. And as long as we brake enough, we'll be all right. In theory, I say that. And is it not? I mean, I'm just going by what the panel says. I'm not using the speed limits in the HUD. It says we can be at 60, so we're at 56. Yeah, some of this stuff I think could use a little tuning by Dovetail. So we will let's start slowing down here. And I don't even know if we're on schedule. I don't. Yeah, I think we'll be all right getting in here. Because I don't have that other smaller HUD up with the time of day, I don't know how close we are to 626. But we'll find out at the end. Or I'll find out at the end. I'm not going to record the entire route, but we'll find out later whether we did okay. And I've also seen some warnings. I think it might be a passenger comfort warning. I've done some really hard braking at some of these stations. Like 80%, 90%, and I've seen a warning light. So I wonder if that's not a passenger comfort warning. All right. There we go. And you will also, let's see, we'll turn it on just to see. We're at level 6 for braking, so that would correspond to 60%, yeah. Apparently this train, you need to be over 60% braking to be able to open or close the doors. So if you coast in and just tap the brakes, oh, fantastic. So we were a little bit early in here. Okay, Good for us. That doesn't happen too often. And then up ahead of us, 70 yards, I do see a restriction there, but we'll just go again off what the lower panel says. All right, wow, how early were we? I kind of want to look. We'll just wait till we get the closed door signal. And while that's going on, I'm going to have a sip of the soda. All right, now I have to look. 6:26:20. How early are we? Wow. Okay. Who knew? Well, let's take a look outside then. And take a look at our new whip. This is our M3 EMU. I like it. I like that in fact, we can go back here now. Look how long this thing is. You can run 6, 8, or 10 car trains. That's a pretty damn long train. I like it. I like it. So we're going to hop back in here. I think we're getting close. So we'll lock doors and proceed. And time, we're at 12 minutes. Okay. There we go. Doors closed. Wait till everything is closed and you get the green light. There you go. Kew Gardens, you got it. That says 60. Let's get rolling here. And I have not memorized the restricted speeds. We're going to pass into a lower speed limit here under that sign. All right, and it turned green just as we got to it. Fantastic. So I'm trying to think what else. One of the other complaints on the forums that I saw is that it never gets dark in this cab, even in the dead of night. That's lights on. That's lights off. I don't know where that light is coming from, but this is pretty bright. Oh, you know what? I don't. Oh, just realized we ignore that. We've had our window open in the rain since we left Penn Station. Since we came out of the tunnel. It happens. It happens. All right. So we'll stay under 60. Next speed limit looks like 80. And there's supposed to be a tone you get when your speed can go up. You get a quick tone when the speed limit goes up. You get a sustained tone when the speed limit comes down. So let's see if we get a... Nope, no indication. Unless, again, it's when the tail of the train passes into that new speed zone. Nope, didn't hear it. All right, signal says we're green. Even though it's a yellow signal, that's indicating it's a green block. Everything's fine. All right. And what else? Now this is the M3 is older than the M7 naturally, and this system is it's a little bit more primitive. It's the same goal. It's the same sort of methodology, but this system here is a little bit more primitive than the one in the S7. So perhaps next Train Sim World episode we'll do the same thing in the M7 and compare the two. I'm liking the head bounce also. That's been, maybe 6 months since Dovetail added that. I really do like that little bounce and shake. I think it gives a lot more of an impression of speed because we are going nearly 80 miles an hour in a, 40-year-old locomotive. You're going to feel that. I have to think that's probably not a very smooth ride. All right. And I think we'll go Kew Gardens. Kew Gardens will be, yeah, we'll go maybe 1 or 2 stops past Kew Gardens. I've also seen, so there's, God, those frame drops. There are also smaller signs that I've been seeing on some of the signage, particularly as we get closer to yards, that indicate where we are. I don't know if those can ever be used to sort of calculate braking points for various stations, they go by very, very quickly, and they're very small. So I don't know that that would ever be kind of a viable trackside option as far as determining where we want to start braking. They're easy to miss, and I think I would definitely miss a lot of them. A lot. So we'll get slowed down here. Hopefully we're on time for Kew Gardens as well. And we've got reduced speed on the other side of the stop. So we'll be starting from a much slower speed. We don't need to worry about that one for now. All right. Start braking right about now. Yeah, I don't know what's causing that. I don't know if that's something that that they did with the route itself as part of the prep that they did before this DLC dropped. Unknown, but disappointing because the game has been playing really, really smoothly on the more recent DLC. It would be a shame if the older DLC didn't keep up. All right. Where's our marker? 4 to 12, that's us. Right. There we go. We'll hop outside again. Not bad up front. They would probably want you. I'm guessing they would. Oof, that is a long train. I'm guessing they would probably want you. They would want the front of the train. Let's hop back out and take a look. They would want the front of the train, even with that railing where the sign is, so there was no possibility of anybody falling through there. So we could be another 10 feet or so forward. But you know what? I'll take it. All right. Time. 17 minutes. Let's go another couple of stops. Lock doors. We are still on time. That is not typical. All right. Doors are closed. Going to Jamaica. There we go. I don't know if Dovetail will ever have either a New York or London subway or underground simulator. Try to use the right names. I don't know if they would do that. In a way, it seems like they could or should, because it's certainly a rail activity. But those aren't technically trains, and so I could understand why they may not. But I would love to see, in the same way that we can take an LIRR train into Penn Station, I would love to see subways going out of Penn Station and around the city. I mean, in a way, it would be admittedly pretty boring, because mostly you'd be looking at the inside of tunnels. But you know what? I know a lot of people think driving a train is pretty boring. And let's see what our speed limit is here. Yep. So we get that warning. We need to get on the brakes. As long as we're braking enough, we won't get a penalty stop. All right. So we got that one. That was a little bit, I could have been a little bit quicker on the brakes to slow us down. And I'm not sure if you could see the overspeed light come on. But that's the goal, is to either be under the appropriate speed. Like right now we're at 39 and a 40. Or when you transition from one speed to a lower speed, that you get on the brakes quickly enough that you don't hit that penalty. All right. Still doing good. Still doing good. Right in here. I like the glare in the wet. I like the reflections. I think that looks good. So that is that double tone we got right there is telling us we've got a 15 coming up. So let's get slowed down for that. And also we've got a stop. So I think we're going to be okay there. Yep. I don't know if you saw the way we started to pick up speed immediately after I came off the brakes. I think it's because this train is so long, the bulk of it was still on that grade. We were still coming down that hill. And it was pushing us forward, accelerating us. All right. Let's see. I'm looking for my sign down there. I can't see it yet. And there's one of those little trackside signs. Yep, there's one. They are tiny. Nice big freeze. All right, and this is perfect. We hit our mark. That's a good thing. And we're also stopped right in front of one of these signs. That's both a signal and an indicator of what track we're on and which yard this is. I've seen those further up the line when we're getting to a stop or a yard or a station. So I think they can give you information about a station that's coming up, a stop that's coming up, but they're really, really small and they go past really, really quickly. So I don't know. I mean, I'd like to be good enough to spot those. I just don't know if I will ever be able to. Let's see where we're at on time. No, I'm not, because as soon as I escape out of this pop-up that we have on screen to open up the other clock and look at it, as soon as I do that, it will say doors closed and we'll lose a few seconds. I think this is the most stops I've ever hit on time on the LIRR ever. All right. So that means if we're waiting this long to depart, we've been early on all of these. That's unprecedented. There we are. We'll go to the next stop and call it there. I think it's not far. I want to say it's less than a mile. Or it could be 8 miles. All right. Here we go. So we are in a 15 now. So that speed limit changed without us moving. And I'm curious how often that happens as well, because so many of the speed limits seem to be determined by traffic. I'm curious if that can happen. When you're sitting in a station, the speed limit was 40 for us, and then as soon as we moved, it became 15. So was that always going to happen, or did something change in the environment that reduced the speed limit that was 40 to 15 even though we hadn't moved? Curious. All right, that's our alerter. And I think I just get the audio cue for that. I haven't seen on here anywhere any type of a light or anything that would indicate when we need to reset the alerter. I think it is strictly just that sort of bell ring tone. Now the M7 may be different. I think that does have a visual cue on the panel, but for this whip, I'm not sure. All right, I'm going over here now. It amazes me. I'm absolutely humbled to think that there are people that know all this stuff, right? Train operators on the LIRR, they know all these signs, and they may not necessarily have them memorized, but they at least they know the code because they've been doing it for 10 years or 20 years or however long they've been doing it. And so they know all those signs, they know all these yards, and this is what they do for a living. 5 days a week, yo. This is their job. That's crazy. I heard a rumor that every year when the Long Island Railroad takes applications, they'll have like 7 spots available for train operators, and they'll get like 10,000 applications from all over the world. Everybody wants to drive the train. Can't blame them. All right, and once we get out of this 15 zone, all right, so now we're in a 60. pick up the pace a little bit here. Once we're rolling again, we should be at, is it Merillon Avenue? Merillon. We'll be at Merillon Avenue, hopefully within the next, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. And that should bring us in right around 30 minutes. So we'll stop at Merillon Avenue, and I will finish off camera. See what kind of gold medal we get. And this is, I'm reading in the notes, I guess there is some very long stretch of the LIRR in real life that, I wouldn't say that it has no speed limit, but anytime you're on that route, you're virtually guaranteed to be maxed out. And that is included in the sim somewhere, somehow. Maybe? Oh. Yeah, those frame drops, I don't ever recall it being that bad before. And it's still coming from the same drive. It's still coming from an SSD. My RAM is still the same. So I'm curious if that is something that they did when they prepped this route to receive this DLC. Or it could be the DLC itself. I hadn't even thought of that. I'll hop in an M7 as well and see if we get the same freezes. All right, there's that. Yeah, that's really bad. Nigh intolerable. All right. And this route is, another rumor is that it will be extended out. I don't know about that. I feel like Dovetail and their business model, I feel like their goal is to get these DLC cranked out, get people to buy them, and then move on to the next one. So I think it's pretty unlikely that we would see the LIRR extended all the way out to the tip of Long Island the way people want it to be. It would also be a heroically long route. That would be, what, like 60 miles, 50 miles? So who knows if they'll ever do that. I mean, they could do another DLC, right, from the end of this DLC. Not that the two would connect together, but you would have the opportunity to take a train from New York City to the furthest stop on this DLC and then swap DLC and take it the rest of the way. That's a possibility. I don't know if this will ever have the editor tools that people have been asking for and the ability for the community to create routes and activities and scenarios and timetables and that sort of thing. I know the community wants it, but I just don't know if Train Sim World supports it in the same way that Train Simulator franchise did. Okay, be aware now we're going to have a speed limit change, perhaps. Perhaps. We've got yellow signals coming up. And the names for these are great too. I don't want to get any of them wrong. Here we go. So we got to get all the way down to 40 miles per hour. So even though we're going 70, we have adequate braking on to keep us under the curve so that we'll be at 40 by the time we need to be at 40, and that's making the system happy. All right. So there we are at 40. And then we jump back up to 80. Okay. That's braking. I don't want braking. I want... Oh my goodness. Hit the wrong button. All right, so we need to... Oh my goodness, this is a disaster. We need to go to max brake. Right? We need to come to neutral. We need to reset that. We need to recharge the brakes. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. And we were doing so good. All right. Brakes are good. So we go back there. There we go. Yep. Pilot error. Fat fingered it. And hit the brakes instead of the throttle to get us back up to 80. It happens. It happens. Fortunately, we don't have too far to go. So we'll get pulled in here and call it. And what was I talking about? What was I complaining about? Oh yeah, another DLC going out to the tip of Long Island. Maybe, maybe. But until Dovetail includes a way for the community to build it, I think we're sort of just waiting to see what DLC they release next. I've been, for the most part, really pleased with the DLC. I know the game's not perfect. I know Dovetail, whatever. I don't like them any more than you do. But the game itself and the DLC itself, or themselves, I've been pretty pleased with. I don't have a ton to complain about. But in fairness, I am not as much of a Rail fan as some of these other sim players and gamers. And I think my expectations are a little bit different than theirs. So fair's fair. All right, speed's good. Speed limit's good. And we'll just get into this next stop and call it. Yeah, I'm pleased with this. I don't know. I don't know why they haven't brought, because apparently there are diesel locos on the Long Island Railroad. I don't know why they haven't brought those in as well. It would seem like that would be the next choice. One electric, one diesel. In the same way that on something like the Peninsula Corridor, we've got one older train. We've got one, there we go. And that did put us into penalty braking. I'm not sure why. Did we not get back down under 80? Wow, everything's going kind of tits up on us at the end. Did we not get down under 80 quickly enough? I mean, clearly we did not. But that's very disappointing. Okay, so then we come back to neutral. We reset there. We top off the brakes again. Like so. Put the train back and forward. Brakes come off. Here we go. All right. I mean, we weren't that far. Wow, that system really doesn't mess around. We were just a few miles per hour over 80, and it threw us into penalty braking. Okay, good to know. I think this may have been that long stretch of unrestricted. No, it couldn't be, because there were a couple places where it did bump us down to a restricted speed. Okay. All right. First part of this trip was pretty uneventful, and we were doing great on our stops, and then everything just fell apart. But you know what? That happens. That's how we learn things, right? That's how we figure things out. So this is going to be restricted. Slow approach. Certainly is. Hang on. We're not missing this one. Hard on the brakes. All right. We are under 40. So we'll pull in here. How far are we from the end of the route? Not too far. I'll go ahead and finish this up off camera. This is something else I need to work on, getting stopped more at the platform and not before it. Carrying more speed down the platform, right? Keep the train moving a little bit longer and give us a little bit more time to get into our stops. Because as it is now, I feel like I could come into the platform at 30 or 40 miles per hour and then do my braking along the platform instead of doing my braking before the platform and spending a lot of time going not very fast. We wanted to stop at the, yep. Oh dear. That's as good a time as any to end it. Oh my goodness. I completely missed the mark for a 10-car train, pulled down to the 12 and then overshot that as well. My goodness. Not good. Not good. All right, let's call it right there. Before anything else goes wrong, let's call it right there, folks. Thanks for stopping back to check out the Portable Gamer. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Train Sim World 2020. This is the M3 EMU add-on DLC. See you next time. Take care now.